started. Thank you everyone for joining today. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our customer advisory board members. I see Phil's here. They and our beta testers, we had 66 locations beta testing DVX. It was all tremendously helpful, provided us a lot of guidance and feedback. In addition, our customer advisory board members provided customers. So they recruited customers from their shops that we could then interview to get their experience and integrate their preferences and understand what was important to them, or I should say most important to them. For today, tips on getting the best experience is use the at the upper right of your screen, you'll see a little grid icon, and in there, if you go to speaker mode, you're going to get the best. You're going to get Carolyn's screen, and you're going to get not the Hollywood Squares experience. And then also, if you have any technical issues, feel free to reach out on chat to our product marketing manager, Laura. And then also, for any questions that arise during the webinar, please put those in Q&A. It makes it a lot easier for looking for questions in one place versus two. And a lot of you, looks like you're joining us again from the Messenger webinar. Thank you. It's great to see you again. Hopefully get as much out of this webinar today as you did in Messenger. And so with that, I will turn it over to Carolyn to kick us off.
Thanks, Darren. Thank you for being with me, and thanks to Roxanne and Laura for also being with me on this highly anticipated demo. Thank you everyone for taking some valuable time out of your day and checking this out. This is going to be coming out next week. We've got more information about that, but we want to, again, like Messenger, give you some advance notice. Really excited to get your questions and any other feedback you have, so do not be shy about the Q&A. Any and all questions, comments, concerns, welcome. And without further ado, let's get this thing started. So we've been talking about DVX a lot. What does it actually mean? So in a very simple way, DVX is a registered trademark of Shop-Ware, and it stands for Digital Vehicle Experience. The term is broadly used when you talk to some of our staff. They'll talk about it as sort of this or that, and so it applies to lots of different things, but generally it's meant to describe the immersive user experience for your customers, the vehicle owners, when they interact with your shop on Shop-Ware. So we're talking about the customer's interface. Of course, we've had an interface to customers since the very beginning. You can share ROs, customers can come to that RO and they can interact with it. So this is not actually a new concept. The project to refactor this interface through 2020 to this year is what is more specifically referred to as DVX. On sort of like an overarching level though, speaking personally, this is like Christmas Day for me. I have been working on this project and fulfilling this product need for a really long time, which is why you know that we've already had something that kind of did this, and yet we acknowledged that there were things about it that just weren't working really well. And we started the project to refactor what the customer was seeing, and not only what the customer was seeing, but what were we trying to accomplish with the application? What was the technology meant to do? And we started to totally whiteboard, start from the very beginning and just frame out what it's all about. And over here, you can see on this slide, one of those whiteboarding exercises. And this was actually the whiteboard on which we came up with the term digital vehicle experience, which you'll see right here in the middle, circled. But what this exercise was about was, okay, we have kind of like, what does the customer normally experience? What are you trying to tell the customer? But then on the right-hand side, like, what is the technician doing, and how do we document what the technician is doing? And one of the challenges that Shop-Ware has uniquely taken on is this idea that there are lots of different scenarios when you want to communicate with your customer. There's estimate, there's work order, there's invoice, and there is repair, there is maintenance, and there is diagnosis. And the DVI concept is a one size fits all-ish, type of tool that allows you to get photos and commentary in front of your customer, but it doesn't do so in a way that's contextual to why that customer is here. So we started to really just kind of like pour all the pieces out on the table and say, like, what are we trying to do here? And we ended up with this revised concept of how we take what happens inside of your shop and how do we help you present it to your customer with all of the flexibility of all these different scenarios, but with super high value and minimal burden to you to set up. So this is the first step of that process. There's lots more to come. What's fun about this is from July 10th, 2019. So it goes to show how long we've been working on this project. But over here on the right-hand side, you'll see this overwrite in blue ink that says, welcome, results, price, checkout, and then with a double line on the side, which is like, do you have any questions? And this is exactly what we ended up building, right? You're going to see this today. And the changes that we've done around Messenger is actually to move the commentary, which is this questions discussion, to the side, right? It's a sidebar to what is going on with the car. So just to let you know that, we spent a lot of time thinking about this, and DVX is really the genesis of coming up with this solution. So more specifically, what you are going to see when this goes out is a totally new design to the customer-facing side of Shop-Ware. And again, I'll demonstrate that to you today. What this new interface represents is a completely new code base from what you're used to seeing when you look at a repair order. So when you look at, you've probably like made yourself a repair order and shared it with yourself and looked at it in an incognito window or on your phone or something, so you can get a sense of what the customer sees. You will notice that that interface traditionally looks a lot like the staff interface, and that's because it's the same code base. And so what we did was extract what the customer needs to do on the repair order and move it to an entirely new code base, which is built on React, which is a different design framework. And so that makes it look contemporary. So it looks a lot more slick, and it's much easier for us to build on. So we'll be able to improve this much more quickly. And for those who've been on Shop-Ware for a long time, of course, the customer facing side of house has not changed it's minimally changed over the years. And of course, folks have said, like, I need a better way to showcase to my customers what the revised total is going to be. And I need my customers to not see recommendations at the top and so on. And it's like, yeah, we can't really fix all this because it's so old and it's just too, like the code base is too challenging to build upon. And so rather than invest in that and continue to like kind of band-aid the problem, it's like, let's just build a completely fresh new interface on which we can then build a bunch of cool new shit. So that's what we did. What this does is translate auto repair into a familiar e-commerce shopping experience. And that's non-trivial. The reason why it has taken us so long to get this to you is because auto repair does not normally fit into a traditional e-commerce experience, right? Like if you go to Amazon and you're shopping for stuff, first of all, you're typically not buying thousands of dollars worth of auto repair, but you're also picking things out, paying for them, and then you get them later. And you don't have nearly the same regulatory burden that you'd have in auto repair as well. Instead, what happens with auto repair is that you come and you buy some things potentially, and then you don't pay for them, and then you get them later, and there's like an update, and then you pay for them. So it's a very unique workflow. And then we know there's a bunch of nuance around how people want to buy or otherwise understand what they should buy for auto repair, which is a lot more complicated than like buying pajamas, okay? So how do you get all of that unique domain expertise and nuance of your value prop into something that's otherwise like a click and pay? And so what that means is what we've built is something that's friendly, it's sophisticated, it's convenient, and all that means that it's encouraging to your customer to buy on. And we'll have some stats for you in terms of how this has impacted the folks in our beta group. But this is just the beginning. Right now that we have this separated and we can start to measure customer behavior, we can actually start to optimize how we present information so that customers are more likely to want to buy, more comfortable saying yes. And there's some additional stuff that folks I'm sure will have questions on, which I'll talk about towards the end in terms of how we can continue to give you more flexibility to sell the way you want to sell. Notable changes are that you will no longer see, or customers will no longer see, notes appearing in a side tray. Notes will appear, linearly with services. There is no longer a recommendation summary at the top of the page when the customer first arrives. It's moved towards the bottom. Every current recommendation requires a customer action when the RO is a work order. So assuming you are presenting work during the course of the repairs, you will no longer have the problem where a customer leaves something pending and then you have to follow back up with them and say, what did you want to do? They either have to pick approve or decline, and then you've captured that activity. And Darren can share more detail, that he did a lot of extra work in beta to identify where customers might be hitting snags and removing those snags so they could easily get through it. And it's actually kind of remarkable what he learned as far as how much information customers are willing to digest and still make it through the entire workflow. There is now a shopping cart, for lack of a better word, where when the customer submits the cart, they have clear understanding of the current and revised totals. So they understand what they started with, what they've added, and now what they're agreeing to. I know that's a big crowd pleaser. Signatures are also captured at every approval submission. So every time they click submit, they have to submit their signature as well. And those signatures are then captured and memorialized on the invoice PDF. And you'll also notice in the, in the interface, there is now a sticky bar that includes the service advisor's name, a one-click to make a phone call to the shop, and obviously Messenger. And we've positioned those in a way that aren't too hard for customers to find, but definitely encourages folks to go to Messenger first. And that's because you prefer to just have a asynchronous chat than necessarily blowing up your phones. But they still have a link to call you right through the app, which again is something that folks have asked for a long time. Okay, so let me get into a demo. So here we have a repair order. Darren, can you think that's big enough? Do I need to make this larger? If anyone needs this to be larger, just let us know. So
Yeah, I'd make it a little bit larger, yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Great.
Let's make it easy on everybody's eyes.
How about that?
That's great.
All right, so here is an estimate. I'm going to start with an estimate, then I'm going to go to a work order, and then I'm going to go to an invoice. I've already preloaded it to save time. So here we are in an estimate. We have customer Dave Smith and his Prius. He's got 2 past recommendations, and then we're doing a courtesy check, and we're doing a warning light on. So the courtesy check is what we do at my shop every single time. And then the customer states notes are, Dave says the red triangle master warning light illuminated yesterday, please check and advise. And so we've added a warning light diagnosis to this ticket. So when I share this job with Dave, and in this case, I've just copied the share link in Chrome, I've opened in an incognito window. I can see that over here. So this is the new customer interface. And I'll make this a little bit larger. So in this case, the RO is an estimate, and you'll see up here at the top, we've decorated it with the word estimate. We have this pretty welcome panel. It has heads up information about who the service advisor is. And again, this is the link to call. And then this is the button to start a messaging exchange. So that's lives up here at the header. And then you'll see the services cascading from there. So we have courtesy check, we have warning light on. And then at the very bottom, we see any notes that have been written. In this case, there's just one, which is, Dave says the red triangle, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll notice at the very bottom, we have a recommendation services overview. When the RO is an estimate, that section is automatically collapsed. And that's because usually if you're recommending additional things in the estimate stage, you will just add them directly onto the ticket. It's also to try and minimize how much noise is on the page when the person is initially coming and reading all of these details. It's possible that we will adjust this so it automatically opens, but if the customer wants to open it, they can see whatever past recommendations, or if they happen to be current recommendations, will show here. So that stuff is here. And then over here on the right-hand side, you see this sort of shopping cart information where it's starting to give you the total. And this is the desktop view. So kind of like when you're on Grubhub or Amazon or whatever, you're getting your information over here on the right-hand side. And then underneath that, you have your terms of service, you have your checkbox, the signature box, and after you sign, you get your opportunity to approve. So this is what it looks like on desktop. When you're on tablet, it's a little prettier, right? Starts to get into more of a optimal tablet view. Again, you'll see that the sticky bar is now present up here at the top. So this is a click to call. This is a click to message. This just opens the messenger panel, just like you would normally expect. And then again, you're just scrolling down. The stuff that was on the right-hand side is now positioned underneath. So estimate summary, terms of service, and the requirements from the customer. Same thing when you get into mobile, very similar. So everything is just more condensed. And this has been optimized, obviously, for very small screens and looks pretty darn slick. So me as customer, I have the ability, Dave Smith, to approve this work. I can say yes. It requires me to sign, so I would sign. It then lights up this button in green, so I know this is what I need to do next. And now I can pre-approve this estimate. So this is the pre-approval flow when the job is an estimate. So if I'm back here on Shop-Ware, I obviously will get lots of information about what's going on. Here's pre-approved the estimate. I undid some approvals for the past rec earlier before this demo, so ignore that. Okay, and then let me refresh the screen. So Dave is now arriving at the shop. I am ready to check this customer in. Sorry, this is from before. Let me reset these to pending so you can see those. So now I'm ready to check this customer in. So I would go start job. It's already pre-approved. That's great. I'd enter his odometer and start this job. So now this RO is a work order. So I, as service advisor, may transfer to my technician. My technician will start working on it. I've got just some notes prepared for this, so I will not actually walk you through a diagnosis of a Prius with a hybrid battery problem, but I'll load it up so you can see what it looks like. So I, as technician, would start working on this vehicle, start filling out some stuff. I'm going to mark the tires as red. Let's see. I already pre-wrote my notes. So during courtesy check, found front tires bald on outer edges, recommend replace both front tires. And then I'm going to attach a picture of some tires. Again, this would come off the technician's phone. I'll go ahead and publish that. And then now I'm going into my warning light diag. I'm going to grab these two notes. So in this case, me as the technician, I'm writing scan codes, found P0880, replace hybrid battery pack, load tested battery, confirmed weak module 5, HV battery will need to be replaced. So in this case, I'm going to load up the rest of these assets, and I'm going to publish this. So now let's say that I transfer this back to the advisor. The advisor writes, please see tech notes. We can get this done today. Let us know if you have any questions. Dave. All right. So at this point, I've done my courtesy check. I've done my diagnostic. If I had a maintenance service, do the maintenance service, fine, whatever was out of my inspection there. Now I'm ready to make some estimates. So as the service advisor, I would put up, actually, I'm going to put them here. I'm going to write some tire service. So I'm going to put up 2, and I'm going to add some 185, 65R. Where's my good years at? 18. Poop. There we go. So my guys are here. These are the ones I'm stocking. I'm going to put 2 on this. So this is my tire service. And then I'm going to add my hybrid battery replacement. So here is Replace pack, most popular, fantastic. This is getting to be a good juicy ticket. I love it. Publish. Okay, so now I got my recs on there. So this would be the time when I'm ready to now send this to the customer and have them check it out and buy some service. So I would once again go share, share with customer, however the contact preference you wish. In this case, I've just copied the link and put it in another window. So I will go over here and show you what that looks like. So we'll just run these side by side. So me as customer, I can either follow a new link, or let's say I'm already on this job. Same information up here at the top, except that now it indicates that this is a work order. I will see the results of my inspection displayed inside of the inspection service. If the service does not include any inspection items, those services will be collapsed to try to get the customers down into the finding section. In this case, the warning light on is not complete yet, so you can see that it's gray and this is blue. If I had already completed it as the technician, I look at this again, you'll see that it'll turn blue. So it actually indicates how much is completed. And then the findings proceed from there. So you're getting the same initial comment, the comment about the tires, along with your usual ability to showcase photos. Here's the hybrid battery results. And then here are the recommendations. So the recommendations will appear in context of their notes. And then again, down at the bottom in a summary. So you see those in two places. You see them here. And then as you continue to scroll down, the customer gets a review of those, both the current and any past recommendations down here. So I can either start making decisions on these recommendations in situ, or if I'm not quite sure what to do, I can click approve or decline recs, and it's going to anchor me back to that summary of what do you want to do about this. And if I'm curious about where this came from, there's a link here to say view and note, which will take me back up to the context of where that recommendation was presented. So in this case, I'm reading this over. Today's the day. I'm going to do the hybrid battery pack. So in this case, I'm saying, okay, you know what? Let's take care of this car. I'm going to approve the tire replacement. You see that added. I'm going to approve the, approve the battery job. Once I have successfully approved all of the current recs, it will take me down here to take me to the next step. In this case, though, I've still got some past recommendations that are outstanding, and it's rainy in San Francisco right now, so I'm saying, you know what, I'm just gonna do everything. So I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna add this, and you're gonna start to see all of those things total down here. So here's the approved amount. Here are the additional recs, and it's giving me the revised total for all of that information here before I even submit. So again, next step is signature box. It's already highlighting that this is where I need to go next. I would add my signature.
Carolyn, before you go there, can you just exit out of there for a second?
Yeah.
And expand the additional recs and the approved amount so that we're getting some questions regarding the details. And so I just wanted to show them that those details are there if the customer is so inclined to go look to see how much is labor, how much is parts, and so forth. So thank you.
So if it has has and fees, it will add it, you'll show whatever is included in that individual service. If the service doesn't have has and fees or whatever, it doesn't show that amount. So it's just showing you what's contributing to the grand totals here. And then ultimately what's, where did the sales tax come from? Does that answer everyone's questions, Darren, or is there anything else?
That was it.
So we have also the ability to decline services. So if folks change their mind, they can pull things out. You see that total update in real time. They can click learn more and see a summary of this stuff. Again, same thing. What are the details that are included in this service? They can drill into that. And this continues to honor the transparency settings that currently exist around how we showcase subtotals and part numbers, et cetera. So you should expect the same treatment that customers see today to be translated to this interface. So no worries there, but I'm buying all of it. All right, so next step is sign the box. Let me get out of here again. I'll show you. So even if I've gotten lost, this blue button is going to take me right back down to what I need to do, which is the signature box. I'll sign. Should learn how to sign Dave Smith. And then again, click the green button, approve and submit. And this is going to come back to Shop-Ware just like it normally does. And you're going to see all those things as being approved. So that is the process of folks submitting this stuff just like you would be used to today. If someone changes their mind and you want to represent, you can always reset stuff to pending. This is before you add it to the ticket. If you've already added to the ticket, then you want to convert it back to a rec, you can do it that way. So you still have control over resetting approvals or converting things to current recs if you need to, just like you are today. And similar rules, whatever shows in the customer side that are published notes is what they're going to see over here in their interface, just like today. It's just going to show in an updated order with a much cleaner means to make the decisions and navigate through the interface. And Darren will talk about that too. So let's say in this case, I am now good to go on these approvals. So I'm going to add all this to the ticket. And those things are going to add at the bottom. So we've got the tires, we've got the hybrid battery pack, we got some wiper blades, super duper. I, as the technician, would do the tires. I, as the technician or transfer to the tech, would do the hybrid battery pack. As always, you can add additional information to the ticket as you're going along. This is the magic, right? Which is that you don't have to just show information before you sell the work. You can sell information, excuse me, you can show information throughout the customer's journey. So I'm going to have the technician write a note here around work in progress. And this is some of the stuff that makes Shop-Ware so powerful, right? Is that you can finally bring the customer in to the repair process, not just to the upsell, but to what happens after the process is over, or excuse me, after the upsell is over, when the work actually begins, which is what they're really paying for, right? I mean, this is the problem, is that we so often put emphasis on the upsell, but then we never follow through and show them what they're paying for. And this allows you to show them what they're paying for in a way that, you know, digital vehicle inspections do not. So added some detail there. I'm gonna refresh this. So my notes on the bottom. And then I'm gonna add a battery pack test. This is actually the test that we run at my shop after every single one of these jobs to show to the customer that their new replacement battery is good. And that's used to compare against the data that we collected when we did the diagnosis, and they can clearly see the change. So in this case, this technician has finished all this work. We will transfer it back to the advisor. The advisor is going to close the job. We'll make Elias do this. We will close. And now this work order, excuse me, now this repair order is becoming an invoice. So we'll see that it's an invoice at the top. The next step from the customer's journey, again, you can share with the customer again, same thing, share with customer, text a link, email link, whatever you want to do. As mentioned, I've already got that going over here, so I will refresh that. In this case, all of the services are complete. You see that the job says invoice. As they scroll down, they can look at all the information that you've added, same as what you started with, as well as the results of the repair. In this case, we like to show the car getting worked on, the car in pieces, the before and after for the hybrid battery fans. This is after, this is before. So it really brings to light what they're, all the stuff that happened, that what they're paying for. And then this is the final result when we've tested the battery and it's good. So they are seeing all of that. At the same time, they're being asked to pay. And then the checkout flow is exactly like remote pay. So just like you'd be used to in terms of a mobile view, in terms of a tablet view, et cetera, where the customer enters their information, submits it, and returns back to the ticket. So this is a tip to tail experience, estimate, work order, invoice. It allows you to put all of the value at each one of those moments that you're asking the customer for their financial participation as an estimate for upsells, and finally when you take their payment. and it does so in a completely flexible manner. So whatever the context is for what you're working on, this can handle it. So I'm going to forego putting my own credit card information into that field while we're on this webinar. Hope you don't mind. But that is the rundown on DVX. Let me make a quick look at my notes and see if I haven't missed anything else. No, I think that's all. Okay, great. So what I will do now is, do you guys think I should pause here and leave the demonstration open to answer questions, or should we go back to the slides? What do you think, Darren?
I'm sorry, I'm busy answering questions and I missed that.
We'll go back to the slides. There's lots of commentary, and if we want to go back into the demo, we can.
Sounds good.
So Darren is up next, and he's going to share the feedback that he got when he did interviews, both with our beta testers as well as their customers.
Great, thank you, Carolyn. So first and foremost, again, thank you to our customer advisory board members for making their customers, actually having their service advisors recruit customers for us to interview. It was tremendously beneficial. So we not only heard from service advisors, we heard from their customers, and you can see some of their comments here, but I'll start with service advisors first, because that's first and foremost, it's got to work for them, otherwise it's never going to work for the customer. So the comments that we received overwhelmingly were, it saves me time. It's less time on the phone. It's less time explaining things. And the biggest benefit is the approval. So not only getting the approval for recommended services, but also capturing the signature, making that explicit, having that in the printed PDF. And then the last thing is more of a concern that was broadly expressed, which is, I asked our beta testers to think back to when they first started and the kinds of things that they wish they'd known then that they know now. And the biggest one by far was that when you share the RO, it's a live link. So if you share it before you're done with the estimate and you don't have any parts in there yet, you just have labor on there, and the customer's looking at that, they may build up some expectation about what that cost is going to be, not knowing that you're not ready for them to see that yet. So it's something to be mindful about when you choose to share the RO with the customer. And then in general, from customers, what really drove this initiative to talk with them was frankly my concern around requiring that we have a decision for every single recommendation that's been made. I mean, for some shops, they're going to throw the book at a customer, so to speak, if that vehicle is the first time that's been to their shop. So I was really concerned about that, wanted to get real people that are making these decisions to get their feedback about how many recommendations they'd be willing to sit through in order to get one thing they know that they need to get done today done. And what that interview showed consistently was up to 20 recommendations. Those are kind of funny moments there where, gosh, if I have 20 recommendations, should I keep my car? It was a lot of fun having those conversations, but they were, by and large, at a minimum, they were willing to go through and digest all the information, specifically citing having it on their phone and then having a separate computer for them to go through and look individually using the approve and decline section, the overview section, referencing that, doing research on their computer, making a decision and moving on. They also like the idea of sharing, being able to forward the text message with that link to the shared RO to a significant other or spouse, and being able to tag team the questions of those recommendations. And so that really shocked me. It was 80%. There was two, so we presented two different ideas. One is sort of an escape hatch. Hey, I'll just decline all the rest. I'm gonna approve this one. I'm gonna try to go, but I can't go. You're gonna force me back into it now. Give them an escape hatch. And overwhelmingly, they said they all liked, this wasn't like buying dinner. Their elderly parents may be driving the vehicle, their teenage son may be driving the vehicle. They really wanted to know the condition of the vehicle and make really well-informed decisions about what they're doing with the work order. So, and there you see their comments here, they overwhelmingly loved it. So, I'm happy to share that information with you. The other thing that we're trying to do on our own is establish metrics for how much are we improving things. So for example, requiring the decision to decline or approve all those specific recommendations has been out about a week, I think. No, 2 weeks. And so it's still early. We don't know exactly, and we have a hypothesis that it's going to drive greater approval than they're already getting, the shops are already getting for recommended service. We're going to measure that. So we already have the data for the beta period. We're going to continue to evaluate that over time to see what happens and if that actually does happen. And of course, we'll share that information with you as we get that in and are able to digest it. So this is kind of a ground game. It's only 2% approval from prior to the beta period to being in the beta period, and that's for all the beta participants. Just as a but the good news here is that we've done no harm. So we've got a good thing. We think we've made it better. Our numbers indicate that. Our conversations with shops and with their customers indicate that. So we're proceeding maybe a little too carefully, but I like that. I like getting data. I like being able to point to it and have that guide us in our efforts to get you better ways to interact with your customers that get you further down the road, make your customers happier, and just in general make life better. So with that, I'll ask you if you have any questions about that. Let me just scroll down here in the panel. Okay, I don't see any questions specific to that part of it.
Good job, Darren. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions about prioritizing the importance of recommendations, and in general, a lot of questions about, hey, can we reorder these things? I've been handling this individually in the Q&A panel, and thank you for using the Q&A panel, folks. But no, we don't have that yet as part of this version of DVX, and we are working on that. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Carolyn.
Thanks. Yeah, I have our next steps slide here momentarily. So thank you, Tara. Thank you, Daniel. So just to, again, let me get out of here for a second. So this is what we've got now. And this is where we've been. Hold on, let me get my Zoom out of the way. Let go. Forgive me just a minute. Did I put it here? Maybe I put, no, I don't think I did. Just a minute. It'll be worth it, I swear. So this is the old view. So very kind of simplified landing page. Obviously, this notes button was put here with some call outs so that it encouraged people to find this tray, because this tray was kind of mysterious. Then instantly you're landed on current recs, which is, as folks know, putting a lot of price right in front of the customer before they've necessarily digested what you had to say. And then the ability to understand what you're going to be in for is largely driven by, already approving and then referring to the change. So it's a retroactive. The significant improvement over here on the right is that obviously it's a much more contemporary looking interface. We actually got very lucky with what you see on the left. It's weird. It doesn't exist anywhere else. But I think because of that, customers would come to the page and go, what is this? And they'd kind of just be curious and try to figure it out. And that was sort of lightning in a bottle. We said, we don't want to lose that lightning in a bottle. When we introduce something that's more traditional or, more familiar and slick looking, we don't want to ruin whatever is engaging customers over here. So what you see now is obviously, as I mentioned, a contemporary look and feel, but also a fresh code base that allows us to start to solve the problems around how to add additional color or detail around, for example, the priority of recommendations. How do you want to batch recommendations that have the same priority together? How do you want to withhold necessarily showing prices until a certain amount of discussion on the RO has already taken place? These are all different, very common requests and preferences that we've heard from shops. So step one is obviously present the information, the same as always has been there. Put notes out of this tray and move them down to the bottom. Move recommendations underneath the discussion. So finally, the summary is down here at the bottom. And then after you interact with the recommendations, then you know what's going on and you can confirm, including gathering a signature, right? So we've basically refactored what the interface the customer walks through to get to this point. And now that we have this and we are rolling it out next week, we can go on from there to start making this even more sophisticated, where you can start hanging assets, for example, underneath individual inspection items, being able to move notes within the individual services. So, hey, here's the warning light on. I want to see the notes about the diagnosis here next to the warning light on. How do I want to batch things in the recommendation summary by priority? Maybe I want to do them by note, where if it's a radiator and some hoses, I want those to be presented together, or like a good, better, best. All those things are on our roadmap. So just to call out like the interface improvement, and then acknowledging that inside of this interface, there is much more to come. All right, let me get back to the slides. Okay. So next steps. This is going to go out. You can see my slides, Darren?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
This is going to go out next Wednesday. No setup, no additional cost. All plans are included. There's nothing you have to do. Next thing to know is that you should have some fun. Already, we've heard pretty amazing things from our beta testers and their customers around their experience with this. I think that your customers are going to be super excited about it. Of course, you are encouraged to give us feedback. As mentioned, we've already had this in beta in 66 different shops, single locations and multi-shop. And we are pleased with all of the feedback we've received there. And we know that it's ready for prime time. Additional planned product enhancements. So inside of Messenger, you will now have an audio notification, a number count for number of messages unread, and the ability to initiate a direct message, all in February. So some of these things are timed to go out in the next week's release. There will be others that follow inside of the month of February. Obviously, stay tuned for the release notes. After that, you will get into what's called ShareView, which is this interface for you on the shop side to be able to start controlling where notes appear. We are also going to be building a tech view, which is going to allow technicians to interact with the page, kind of purpose-built, similar to how this new interface is purpose-built for customers. We will be building an interface that is purpose-built for technicians, and this will be the gateway for technicians to start attaching media directly under inspection items. So that will then move those notes to be in place in inspections instead of, again, just sitting on the bottom or on the right-hand side. We will be rolling out flexible findings, which will include not only where do you place your notes, your findings, but also having hidden notes. So the ability to just withhold presenting notes to the customer entirely, which will remove this pain around customers seeing things before you want them to. As mentioned, customizable price presentation. So Tara, you've been in the customer advisory board for a really long time, and we've talked about this for whatever 2 years, and you were one of the outspoken folks on being able to rank things based on priority. Very well understood. We appreciate that feedback, and that is where that is going to go. And then you should also look forward to financing tools for buy now, pay later, so that when customers come to this interface, they can potentially decide if they want to put this on time, or different kinds of options around financing, which makes perfect sense inside of that type of interface at that buying decision. So those are additional planned product enhancements. You should expect to see these things throughout this year. So it shouldn't take us another 2.5 years to get this stuff to you. This is coming up fast. First step is getting the interface in front of you and in front of your customers. And I'm very excited to see what you guys think of that. That is it for this presentation. So let us take a little more time for Q&A. Darren, what else do we have?
There's a ton in here. Steve, yes, if you added a parts or labor discount, would the customer see a discount? Yes, they would, Steve. Let's see here, go through here. Is there a way to prevent the tech from publishing a picture to a customer? I would like to approve what the tech publishes first before the customer sees it. Answer here is no. You'll need to give a heads up to your techs that customers can see this. Thanks for that question.
They can leave it unpublished, and then if you have permission to see your technician's notes, it will show to you as unpublished, and you can then publish them.
Yes. But if they hit the publish button, yes, the customer is going to see it anytime you hit that. So
assuming you've shared it already, but yeah.
Yes.
So they have to have shared it, right? And then someone has to actually be actively looking at the page, which does happen. Yeah. And we have Darren, you had some interesting insights about folks in Silicon Valley who were engaging with the RO quite a lot.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic with Axle Automotive. Nick Nas, talked with him yesterday, and where he's located, he has a lot of customers that are either employees of Apple or Google, and so they're keenly looking at the shared RO, and they know they're looking to see if that job's blue and it's completed. And they're actually showing up before the vehicle's ready for pickup because they see that all the jobs are done, even though they've not been contacted by the shop. So that's one thing to be mindful of. I don't know that most customers are probably not there refreshing their view of the RO like those people are, but it's just an interesting dynamic. And then also the notion of if you're sharing an estimate while working on it and you are adding parts, it's probably not a good idea, because the customer could come away with the expectation that of a certain price that they saw initially, and until they refresh that view of the shared RO, they will continue to have that expectation of that price. And then meanwhile, you've added parts or additional labor or whatever else. And so it really is important to keep that in mind when you're sharing the RO, that you really do want and need the customer's input at that point, and that it's really, really ready for the consumer. So just be mindful there.
Yeah, so if the estimate's not complete, you need to leave the note unpublished if the job's already shared.
Okay, we covered that. Will we be able to edit photos, i.e. add verbiage, arrows, so annotation of photos? You want to field that one, Carolyn?
Yeah, we've heard about this quite a lot. We don't currently support annotation of photos. You have photo editors on your phone or on your own machine. So if you want to edit a photo and then upload it, you can. Generally speaking, I've gotten away with just pointing at the things that are of interest without having to do any annotations at all, which of course takes extra time. So that would be my recommendation, but it's something that we've heard a lot. And I think that it's certainly worthy of consideration. I think we need to get some of this other stuff done first, and then, we'll get there eventually, I'm sure.
And then we have a lot of questions around payments. So we have, Troy is asking, does this replace 360 payments integration?
Thanks, Troy. No, so the remote pay that you saw in here is the 360 remote pay integration. So that's powered by 360. For folks that are using a different card present service, you can still do that. You can use your other service and just hook up 360 for remote pay. Or if you want to do 360 for the whole enchilada, obviously they'd be happy to help you. Remote pay is currently powered exclusively by 360. So you need to sign up with those guys to have the invoice payment component. But it does not change what we've had for the last, since April of 2020. It's the exact same interface, exact same hardware hookup.
A related question from Heather, will it save their information for future payments?
It does not. You have like autofill, but it's still browser-based. This is not like an app that's saving customers' own information. And we tend not to touch that because it's PCI issue.
And then Chris Tanner has, for online payment, can any processor be used, or is it specific to one?
So right now it's just 360 payments. So stay tuned. And I think that There's also a lot of questions around partial payments and other things. So that is also near in. It's not related to DVX necessarily. This is really about the customer's interface, but you should definitely look forward to additional features around being able to handle other types of payments, specifically partial payments and refunds and so forth.
And then will there be a change? Melissa's asking if there's a change to how the final invoice prints.
That's a great question. So let me get out of here and show you. Oh, see, I got to touch this. Hold on. Let's go back to this RO, and I will download the PDF. It's a great question. Thank you. And you can see how that's decorated. So this is the signature that I had entered through DVX. So previously it would say, I think paid online or online by Dave or whatever. It had like a box similar to this. Now that wet signature, quote unquote, that was entered through the touchscreen will be memorialized in that same spot for the terms and conditions. And then for each one of the recommendations that are approved, so you'd be used to those, that same signature, this is not this signature, right? This is not the same one. It looks very similar because it's me, but this is what is captured when that person subsequently approves work through the work order flow. So you should feel very good about being able to memorialize those signatures. And so that is a change on the printed invoice.
Great. We have another related question. And where did it go? Oh, here we go. This is from Vernon.
Hi, Vernon.
Glad you joined. He said he may have missed it, but with the checkout feature, does that give customers the ability to pay without any link to a credit card provider, or would our shop need to be integrated with someone in order to accept payment?
The answer is 360 payments. If you go to your shop settings under merchant, there's contact information for integrated merchants. So you can find out how to reach them there.
Scanning for any more payment related questions.
While you're doing that, Darren, this has been an incredibly engaging webinar, and I'm glad that everyone is excited. While there are still plenty of things that we are looking forward to, it's pretty exciting to see how not only engaged we are, i.e., users of the application, but also customers are. Like customers are super active on top of this interface, and it's because they really desire it and like it. So definitely a powerful tool, and I am looking forward to hearing how it continues to help you showcase your value to your customers. Darren, anything else you want to wrap? Sorry, Roxanne.
Oh, I was just going to make you aware of Victor in our chat box here said, you mentioned earlier that a customer can change their mind on a service. If they change their mind and decline a service, will they be notified?
Right. So let's say that I submit the cart. So I'm looking at something like this. The approve and decline buttons go away. So you're just going to see it's approved or it's declined, whatever. If you want to revert something, and this is before the work order becomes an invoice, once it's an invoice, you can't change the recommendations anymore. You can always reopen it and do it if you want, but it will just memorialize their choice here. And so they can't change their mind through the interface. Now, they can call you and say, wait, I made a mistake. But as you know, like most people don't purchase pajamas on Amazon because they didn't actually want pajamas from Amazon. Like when the pajamas show up, you're not going, oh, I didn't want these. Like you click the button. And what's nice about this update to the interface is that they can make choices. It doesn't finalize. Before, it was just one and done. They had like a confirmation box, but this is like approved, decline, and it totals. And then it's not over until they've reviewed the changes to the RO, including the grand total. The total follows you on the bottom of the page everywhere you go. So even as you're interacting with stuff, you can see how that's updating. and then you're submitting a signature and clicking approve. So it's much more clear what they're agreeing to than it has been previously. So I think the incidents where customers are doing things that they don't intend are going to go down even more dramatically.
We have a question from Thomas. Do we still have hidden fields from the customer?
Yes, so the same fields you're used to in terms of RO, vehicle, and customer notes, those do not exist in this interface, same as they always have. So knock yourself out.
Okay.
I have another one here. How or where do I go to turn on the customer signature part when I start an RO?
Yeah, so it will just be part of this. You would share the ticket when the job is an estimate. So normally you would click start job. You would click share with customer. And my recommendation would be to do that before they come in, because it's basically like a quote flow where they get to see everything that they're going to be in for, and they can sign off on it. And then when they come in, all they have to do is basically give you their keys. That's my preference. That's what we do at my shop. For folks that don't want to give customers access to the RO when it's an estimate, then you can just either gather their signature like you normally would on a touchscreen on your kiosk, or you can still use 360 Payments Terminal to gather a signature for card present payments. So those are the two signature captures that are pre-existing that you can continue to use.
Thanks, Carolyn. We have another question. Can we still approve over the phone?
Yes, so the same interface that you're used to on the staff side is the same. So approved by phone, approved by in person, whatever, that's the same. And when those things are submitted, that's going to look like this over here. Instead of it says approved by Dave Smith, it's going to say approved by phone or approved in person. Again, this is very similar to what's been happening on the traditional customer interface. So the same behavior that you're used to in this view is you're going to see duplicated in the new interface. I will say that for folks that are curious, you should make yourself a ticket after the release next week. Make yourself an RO, share it with yourself, click through some recommendations, get some, seat time in this and get used to it. And I think, honestly, it will be demystifying and also kind of exciting for you to start to see how slick and how clean the interface is. As mentioned, we've had conversations with a lot of customers, a lot of older customers, including older customers. And that's, being able to validate that this interface works theoretically, even than the old interface, is something we're proud to be able to say with this release.
Another quick one. We get a couple more questions. Time for a couple more questions, I think. This one's pretty quick. This is from Ross. Ross asks, is there a link you can send so I can send this presentation to my service advisors?
Roxanne.
Oh, yes, I addressed that in the chat box. We will be sharing the recording with all, and the webinar is on demand. So you can use the registration link to view the recording.
Yeah, we covered that one.
I do have one here. Carolyn, I think you mentioned this earlier, but the question is being asked, will it eventually be an option to add pictures estimates in the actual inspection checklist itself?
Yes. So that's this idea of flexible findings, where we can start hanging findings within inspections and within services. So they'll look just the same with photos and notes and potentially recommendations if you choose to add a recommendation to that particular note. So it would appear like in the inspection. Right now they're all at the bottom instead of in a tray. Very soon you'll be able to actually either have them automatically appear there because you told Shop-Ware that this was the result for this inspection, or you can move it around. So that's next. There's a couple other questions about like estimate signatures and some of these other stuff. Email support@shopware.com and we can answer those questions. I think they're pretty clear. So feel free to and actually we have the chat, so we can follow up with you as well on some of these that we didn't actually get to. But we're going to roll it up. We're going to let people get back to wrenching. Thank you again. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you, Laura. Thank you to everyone on the Shop-Ware team that has made this possible. And look forward to this next week. And if you need anything else, let us know.